How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Digester Productions podcast, episode number 205. Appreciate you guys being here. Special guest this week is a YouTuber, content creator, Noah. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you here. We've got some cool stuff to talk about. Before we jump right in, why don't we tell people a little bit about what it is you do, what you got going on over there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, I'm Noah. I'm 27 years old, originally from Chicago, Illinois, and currently living in South Carolina. I am a content creator. I have a YouTube channel called The Entertainment Zone where I like to talk about the different things in media that I'm enjoying. So, television, books, movies, video games, you name it.
Nice. What games do you typically like to play? I didn't even think to bring this up on the show until you just mentioned it.
Yeah, so I grew up not so much as like a hardcore gamer, and it wasn't until high school that I started really getting into different games. So I've been a huge fan of the Assassin's Creed series. I love the Red Dead Redemption series. I got into Watch Dogs a few years ago. So I usually come late to the party, but I usually try and check out some of the big names in video gaming.
So based on those, you seem to be into like open world exploration games.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not too much into the RPG world or like first person shooters. Don't really love what the Assassin's Creed games have turned into because they've started going more into that RPG mode, even though this last game was pretty good of a balance.
The newest one,
yeah.
I forget what the new one is called even. But yeah, the new one is the one that was supposed to be a DLC to Valhalla, I think, right? And they just kind of expanded it into its own thing, if I remember correctly.
Oh, you kind of broke up there.
Oh, sorry. Assassin's Creed Mirage. That's what I was thinking of. Couldn't remember the name.
Yeah,
that's the one that it was a DLC, kind of got made into its own game when they realized they wanted to make more money from it, I think.
Yeah, that's essentially what happened.
I've heard that it was more, not necessarily bare bones, but more down, like a smaller scope. It's similar to like the early games more, as opposed to like Valhalla and Origins and Odyssey.
Yeah, I would say I haven't played Valhalla, but I do think it's supposed to be a smaller map. It's certainly a shorter game because, like you said, it was originally slated to be a DLC. And it definitely has the parkour mechanics of the older games. And so that is kind of what got me into checking it out. Because I had played Origins, and then after that, I tried to play Odyssey, didn't really love it, didn't play Valhalla, but when the announcement came out for Mirage, and there was all this talk about it being a return to form, I was intrigued, and so I ended up getting it, and it was a pretty fun game that definitely was reminiscent of the older games.
Nice. I forget when the first one came out.
2007.
2007. Good grief.
Yeah, and I actually just played it for the first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a couple months ago. It was the most infuriating game I've ever played.
It was a frustrating. I remember playing it a few months after it came out, and even back then I was like, man, these controls are horrible. Like trying to climb. I mean, a number of the games suffered from that, where you're parkouring up like a up a wall, and you're trying to either like jump in a certain direction, and it just flings you off the wall in a random direction that you didn't want to go in.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
man, it was.
yeah. Assassin's Creed 2, I remember, was
Mm.
probably one of the worst ones for it. But yeah, with the original game, it would like not, if you wanted to use the hidden blade, you could only use it in certain instances. And if like you were in a fight with someone, you would have to like quickly switch it over to be able
Mm.
to use it. And it was just so irritating.
There's a couple of those that people gave a really hard time about, or they either gave them a hard time or they loved them, and I was on the opposite side of them. So Assassin's Creed 3 is the one that takes place like on the eastern coast of the US, like the during the revolution, and I
Yep.
really enjoyed that game, maybe because it was like where I've grown up, it
Right.
took
Yeah.
place in. Did you enjoy that game, or were you one of the people that didn't like it? I'm curious.
So originally, when it came out, I
Mhm.
was very critical of it. I remember I think, a junior in high school at the time,
Okay.
and yeah, I think uh, coming off of the Ezio games
Mhm.
and having a protagonist that was very much um, stoic, naive, not very captivating as a character, annoyed a lot of people. It certainly annoyed me. I actually just finished replaying Assassin's Creed 3
Mhm.
about a week ago, and it I enjoyed it this time
Yeah.
around. I definitely think that Connor was a more fascinating character than a lot of people gave him credit for. Um,
Mhm.
I like the combat. Uh, I think my biggest problem with it is that they were starting to make the map larger,
Mhm.
but they didn't populate it with like a lot of activities that you could do.
Yeah.
Like
It's
they had
just open
hunt.
space.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
when you would have to go to a mission marker, there was so much time that you spent having to walk through the frontier, and
Mhm.
that got really, really old after a while.
Fair enough. The other game I was thinking of is Black Flag. A
Oh yeah.
lot of people love that one, and I did not care for that one at all.
Yeah, that one was I didn't love the naval battles that they started doing. And one
Hmm.
of the things, it just got so repetitive to have to constantly do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And then um, I felt like it was so easy to fail a mission. Like it
Mm.
wouldn't give you the time if you were trailing someone. Like if you lost the trail, it was very hard to
Okay.
get
Yeah.
it back. So
Yeah. I just maybe it was the setting as well, but I just could not get into that one at all. I tried playing it probably half a dozen times, and every single time I'd get a few hours in and just be like, I can't do it. I didn't just couldn't get into it, which is weird because and you said you weren't a fan of it. My favorite one was Odyssey, and again, that's partially because I'm a huge fan of that style of game, like the the
mhm.
Romans, things like that, like Greek history, like that sort of thing is like something that's right up my alley anyway. So I'm biased towards that time period and that theme. But I didn't hate the ship combat as much. I didn't love it. I didn't go after it. Like I avoided it if possible, but I didn't hate it as much, maybe because there was so much like landmass to run around on where it wasn't the focus of the game so much as in Black Flag.
Right. Yeah, I like the setting. I
Mm-hmm.
obviously love the improved graphics. I think for me, I just don't like games that feel like a slog. I don't like grinding
Mm-hmm.
away in order
Fair
to
enough. Yeah.
progress in the story um
Mm-hmm.
that yeah, I just didn't have the patience for. something like Odyssey or Valhalla.
Man, no,
Were
that's
you
fair. Yeah. Like I said, that
a
one I feel like
Unity guy?
one of the big complaints I saw was the world was
Assassin's
too
Creed
big
Unity.
and there's just too much just stuff to do. Not even that it was like it's just stuff that was just there just to be there and take up time, not necessarily like deep or interesting. Where it's like, hey, go collect, random, plants from the woods and bring them back to me, and then you have 15 versions of that same activity in every little town.
Right.
So it's just padding almost.
Right.
So I mean that's fair. That's a fair complaint. Like I said, I think that was because I'd taken time off like after Black Flag. I guess Origins is the only one in between Black Flag and Odyssey, maybe. I can't remember exactly.
No. There was after Black Flag they did Rogue, and then after Rogue was Syndicate.
Unity? When was Unity?
Unity. Unity was between Rogue and Syndicate.
One of those was like the weird one where it was only on like Xbox 360 or something as well. It was a weird like non-backwards compatible version of a game. I forget. One of them was weird. I don't remember. But yeah, I think Origins is the first one where it really started going in the direction more of like RPG elements as opposed to the others. Odyssey obviously catapulted off that, and Valhalla, I never finished Valhalla, but I played it a good amount, and that one had a lot of similar themes.
Yeah. Syndicate was the one that took place. It was like the 1800s.
The London one.
The London one, yeah, okay. And that was kind of the beta version, I think, of Origins, because it did have some similar components where you had to level up your character.
Didn't one of them have like brief moments of like time travel where you like wind up in Paris, for instance, and like you're shooting down a plane?
Yeah, that was Unity, because it had it had side missions where you had to rescue an initiate that was stuck in another simulation within the Animus.
Okay. Yeah, I did not play any like those three. I think Black Flag had put me off to him for a while. One of those games in particular, I remember getting roasted for having so many like issues, glitches, and things like that.
Yeah, that was Unity.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think that kind of put me off at that time period. And then Origins, I jumped back in because I thought it was a cool looking setting.
Yeah, Unity and Syndicate were really the ones that were very panned by the critics and by the fans. Unity, because it had all these issues upon release, and then they went with a specific tone in Syndicate that really didn't work. So then they kind of changed everything up, and that's when they started to go more down the RPG route.
Mm-hmm. So you moving away from Assassin's Creed. So you had Assassin's Creed. I know you said like Red Dead games. Yep. Do you do any like the online in those, or is it you just focused on the single player side of it?
So with Brotherhood, I had seen the multiplayer. So I did a little bit of that, but no, I'm more of a main story campaign kind of guy. I kind of do the main story, I do the side missions, and then I'm kind of on to the next thing.
Fair enough. Did you play GTA at all? I know that's more of a shooter. I wasn't sure if you were interested in. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say we just got back into that the other night. I had played it when GTA Online first launched, and then they introduced like heists after a while, and then that's when I stopped. And then Klaus, part-time co-host, he had been begging me for ages to like play GTA Online with him. So it was like 2 nights ago, I guess it was, we hopped online to do some heists, and the game is still fun. It's fun to be able to like do those sorts of heists and things together. It's online, but you don't like we're in a private lobby, so we're not dealing with the random people flying around in jets blowing us up. And it was actually kind of fun. I was happy I experienced it again for the first time in years. I do hate the microtransactions though.
Yeah,
Absolutely
right.
hate it.
I tried GTA 5.
Mhm.
Didn't love it. Not it wasn't exactly uh my kind of game, but
Yeah.
I like you said, I enjoy any of the open world kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So to
I
do
like the
some of the
mindless aspects
smaller,
of them. That was how I was
yeah,
when Watch Dogs was that an actually a launch title for the Xbox One? I can't remember. I know it came out on Xbox One. I think it was one. Maybe it was 360, but it came out right around. I don't remember, but I remember playing that, and that was one of those open world games where it's like there's a bunch of collectibles, but it wasn't overwhelming, and so it was fun to just grind a lot of that sort of stuff out, which is what I like to do in a lot of games.
right, yeah.
So what other games you got going on? I know other than the vast open world games, do you do like I don't know. There's so many other genres I can't narrow it down.
Yeah, you know, I kind of stick with what I like. So
Mm-hmm.
I will say the other series that I really like is Mafia. So
Okay.
um I yeah, I've played all of them. I probably an unpopular opinion that I have is that Mafia 3 is my favorite in the series. I know a lot of people weren't too keen on it, but that is one that I constantly go back to. There's just something about that setting and that gameplay that I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah, I never got into Mafia games. I remember looking at 3 for a while, but I
yeah,
never
they're
bothered
they're
to try it out.
a lot of fun. They're very much you know s- story focused.
Mm-hmm.
They do have some shooting, but it's not like uh first person shooting or anything like
Yeah.
that. I like things that kind of feel like a puzzle. So you're working
Mm.
your way through a warehouse, taking down the enemies, um, and that's just kind of more of the style of game that I tend to lean toward.
Speaking of puzzles, then, do you ever try like the newer Legend of Zelda games?
I have not. I've tried Tomb Raider,
Oh,
which
okay.
is
The newer ones, you mean?
yes, the newer ones.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I remember
Um.
playing the original. I forget if it was the first or second one. The original one on like the original PlayStation,
Right.
and that was back in the day when they actually had puzzles in games as opposed to like, oh, move this object, like pick up this clearly like glowing object and deliver it to the objective. Like
Right.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a different time. I feel
Right.
like they've
They
really
didn't
dumbed
spoon
things
feed you.
down over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to like be hyper focused on like a couple of genres. Like I used to be either strictly like first person shooters. Like there was definitely a phase where it's like I played nothing but Call of Duty all day every day. It was one of those
Right.
games where it's like it would come out like November or whatever, and then at school we'd all get like super into it, and then in the summer it's like, all right, we're gonna grind it out, we're gonna get everything unlocked, get the highest level. And yeah, over time it's like I've gotten so much. It's not that I'm less competitive because I'm still a very competitive person in general, but like I just don't care about
Right.
being good at Call of Duty anymore. Like I got I'm fortunate someone gave me a code for the new one.
Hmm.
Thankfully, because there's no way I'd pay for it. It
Right.
is
Right.
it is robbery. The fact that they're charging $70 for glorified DLC of used assets, and it's the laziest game I've ever seen made marketed at full price for a AAA title. But
Right.
uh yeah, like I tried the multiplayer. I'm like, all right. It's like I'm bad at it because I just don't play like competitive first person shooters anymore. And I'm just there like I just don't care. Just relax and doing my own thing. It's like I just want to have fun. I'm just not competitive about it. But yeah, like I used to be super into like Call of Duty. I would be really into like actual like RPGs that like this, the Elder Scrolls games like Skyrim. Oblivion was my jam back in the day, like the Dragon Quest games, which are still great. But yeah, and then like a lot of like like I grew up with the original Nintendo console, so a lot of Mario. I had the Super Nintendo, like Mario, uh, Donkey Kong games. My girlfriend and I still play like the new Mario games as they come out. It's a ton of fun.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with Nintendo, but anytime that I would stay over at my godmother's house, her
Hmm.
son had a Nintendo, and so we would always play Super Mario 64, and
Hmm.
I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Um,
It's Go ahead.
oh
I'm
God.
sorry.
Oh no,
I was gonna say
I was.
go
Oh
ahead. No,
God.
I'm
Go
gonna stay
ahead.
here. I'm just gonna sit in my own business. Go ahead.
No, all I was gonna say is that, um, my mom didn't really want us to have video games around the house, so it
Mm,
was a few years before I got a PlayStation 2, and it
mm,
was I later found out that there were even two versions of the PlayStation 2, and the one that
yeah.
I had was the one where you had to like put the cartridge in to turn on your controller, and then you had to put in
Mm.
the memory card, and it was a whole big ordeal. Um, but then that's kind of the more that I started to play games, I was in a situation where I was just like, okay, I'm behind. I gotta catch up,
Mm,
and that kind of pushed me to start looking at, uh, what was popular at the time.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned Super Mario 64, which got me thinking like in my just from my own personal experiences, everyone I've talked that I know that have had a Nintendo 64 talks about it like it was the best Nintendo system ever. And it definitely came at a time where there was a lot of advancements with like the 3D games like Super Mario 64, like the Mario Kart games. I think Ocarina
Right,
of Time might have been on there for Legend of Zelda. Uh, there's a ton of super like Nintendo 64 games that really revolutionized like video games in general. And it's
right,
the only Nintendo console I never had. It's one of the few consoles in general that I never had. Other than like the really old school ones, like the original Atari and like the
right.
Sega Genesis, I guess wasn't as old, but yeah, for like the main line between Sony, Xbox, uh, and Nintendo, like I've had pretty much every console. But for every reason, that's the one I didn't have, and that's the one that like everyone remembers so fondly. I'm just like,
Right.
man, I missed out.
Missed out. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, but nowadays I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I can afford to just buy any of the new consoles as they come out. And I remember, I guess the new consoles came out not long before COVID and everything, maybe a little bit before that. But yeah, I just remember everyone complaining. People still complain to this day about how difficult it is. Like, not much, but I do still occasionally see complaints about people having trouble getting systems, and it blows my mind because I never had any problems getting an Xbox Series S or the PS5, and it was just weird to me, like hearing all these complaints, like, oh, they're impossible to get, and then like I go to Best Buy to get a part for my computer, and there's just consoles sitting there.
right, right. Yeah, 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 definitely.
But don't know. I've recently been able to get back into like playing more games. With the holidays coming up, I've been home from work.
Mhm.
Even though I still do a ton of work here in the office at home, but I've had like a couple hours here and there where it's like, oh, finally can relax, do something
Right,
that's not work,
right. Yeah, definitely.
which is hard with like open world RPGs, like the games that you were talking about that you enjoyed, which again, I enjoy those as well. But it's like, those aren't the types of games where I can sit down for like an hour and play it. It's like, those are the types of games where like, I want to sit down for like 4 hours and
Yeah,
actually dive
exactly.
into them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's frustrating. But anyway, one of the moving on from gaming, because I know that's not actually what we had lined up. I just got sidetracked. Your show, The Entertainment Zone, focuses
Yeah.
on, reality TV shows, sort of in general.
Yeah. So right now, as of the time we're recording this, I've got Big Brother content on the channel. So, for those of you that don't know, Big Brother is a reality competition program that airs on CBS, usually during the summer months into the early fall. This season ended up airing a little bit later because of the strikes and the need for content. And so over the last few weeks of the season, I have been posting videos up there, just talking about the season, giving my thoughts, and yeah, it's a really fun show that is a lot of fun to engage with online with other people. It's a show that has a very dedicated fan base, but I don't think it's a show that a lot of people know about or know what it is.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's pretty much my summer obsession, to be honest.
Nice. So
Yeah.
how did you get into like reality TV and like Big Brother in general, I guess?
Yeah, so I actually got into it because of my mom. She had seen my older cousin talking about Big Brother 14 when it was airing. She would see her posting about it on Facebook all the time. And so
Hmm.
my mom turned it on one night and she was really into it. I, at some point on one of the days that she was watching it, uh, got into it with her just because at that time, in that season, there was this returning player, Dan Giesling, who
Okay.
is considered a legend of the game. He's like in contention for GOAT status, and I was really, really impressed with the game that he played. And so pretty much from that season on, I would watch it every summer with my parents, with my sister. And yeah, so it's going on 10 years now that I've been watching.
Nice. So I guess I'll ask this. Like
Yeah.
from my perspective, I've only seen one season of Big Brother, but I'm aware of like a lot of the other stuff. My girlfriend and her mom watched it together a lot.
Mhm.
And to me, like the thing that takes me out of it is like the obvious interference from like the producers and things like that. A lot of times I know it gets edited out, but of the actual broadcast. But to me, like I think that's my like hold up with reality TV in general is noticing staged elements and things that are obviously put in by producers to like create drama and friction between the cast. Does that ever take you out of things, or do you just are you just there to enjoy it for what it is?
So for Big Brother, I will say there definitely has been rumors of production interference.
Mhm.
The thing with Big Brother is that it is a game that is being played. So obviously there are the edited episodes, but then there is a virtually 24/7 live video feed into the Big
Mhm.
Brother house that basically you can watch at virtually any time. Um, and so, with the claims of production interference, I think, for me personally, I would say that it comes in the form of the types of competitions that
Mhm.
they have on Big Brother. So, if production favors certain players, they're gonna have more of a certain type of competition that they know is going to be easy for that player to win. So, like this season, there was a lot of criticism because there were 3 players that kept winning very important competitions, and every competition that these players won were variations on competitions that they had already previously won. And so the fans were like, oh, no wonder that you gave them another, look at these 2 pictures and find the differences competition. And they won it because that's the same one they won last week. So I will say I don't think there's any outright riggery in terms of I will say I don't think there's any outright riggery. I do think there are certain things they can do that can tilt competition outcomes, which can make for a very stale game that leans more towards a result that production wants. But that being said, like there's still a game being played with these other players. They're still making choices that they're not being forced by production to make.
You cut out for a second there.
I just think. What's up?
We're still talking. There we go. Okay, you're back. It cut out for a second, so I didn't want to talk over you because it'll come through in the final version.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think one of the things that bothered me.
So I think that
the one-on-one interviews, I forget what they're called, that they do with like the contestants in the little room. Those I know are like a lot of those are scripted according to production.
Sorry, did I break up there?
In order to make it like more entertaining. I'm almost positive that was a thing that I saw a while back. That and what was the other thing?
Sorry, I think you broke up there for a minute.
Not sure why it keeps breaking up, but I was just saying, I don't know if you can hear me better now or not.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I was just saying, like, I know like the room where they do the one-on-one interviews, like those, like a lot of those dialogues are like scripted by the producers, like good portions of them apparently.
Yeah. So the diary room confessionals, one of the people involved, those are something that in show, like all the recent years, yes, they are 100% scripted like by production. Like every week I will say.
So I think they can use that to skirt around the like game show rules to an extent, since they're not just competing for one grand prize; they're all getting paid anyway.
Yeah, they can.
Things more.
I think that is more about the fact that you have the hardcore live feed watchers and then you have the casual watchers. So essentially, they can edit, or they can have 2 different shows. So, like, if there's a problematic player, they can give them a more favorable edit on the show and like essentially protect that player. Whereas, on the live feeds, you'll see that behavior. You'll see the you're getting a more raw version of these contestants, whereas with the show, they're trying to make this squeaky clean network television show that definitely I do think there is a benefit for the producers to hide certain things or portray certain things in certain ways, which I do definitely think can kind of hamper the quality of the show and make a show that is definitely more campy and silly and goofy than I think the actual game itself is.
I don't know. I know. Maybe it's just Big Brother in general. You cut out again for me on my end, so I'm not sure if you were still talking. I apologize. But maybe Big Brother's not the best example. Like I know, other than Big Brother, you know, what is the TLC in general? That channel as a whole. The like, what is this show my girlfriend watches? 90 Day Fiance.
Oh, 90 Day Fiance. Yeah, I think
the one. Is that the one with all the international people? Like it's always like a couple from different countries. You cut out again. Or is that something different?
You cut out again.
Oh no, it cut out again. How unfortunate. But I'll keep talking until I hear you come back. Oh, maybe
you cut out again.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's not giving me any errors on my end. But is 90 Day Fiance the one where it's always people from different countries? Like it's always like an American and someone from a different country generally?
That I don't know, because I like I said, I watch like competitive reality TV. I don't really go for like the 90 Day Fiance or the Love is Blind.
I was only bringing it up as like to refer to those as like those are like reality TV shows where there's nothing to be won or lost. So those are like also very scripted, where it's like a producer will step in and be like, you know, I bet he said this about you. How does that make you feel? And then it's like everyone gets all riled up and starts fighting again. Like,
yeah,
what is the one where they swap? Is it just wife swap? Is that what it's called?
Oh, where they swap wives?
I guess it's just called wife swap.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. I remember they would do a thing where it's like the wife would come in, have a fit about. They would always take people who are like the complete opposite lifestyle, swap them, and then it's like, oh man, this isn't gonna work for me. And then a lot of times they'd, you know, have a fit and be like, you need to leave my house, you're having all these problems. And then they would cut to like, you know, the husband said that he's willing to give her another chance, but in reality it's like, hey, you're contractually obligated to have her stay in your house for 2 weeks and we need the content, so she's coming back.
yeah exactly. And like I said, that in those types of shows where all you have is the footage, you know, the edited content, that is definitely a case where the producers can make whatever show they want. Like even with Survivor, which I think is a great show, I don't see it as you know, I see it as a fairly real show. That still is a case where they are shooting it months in advance, and so they can edit whatever storyline. And so what ends up happening is you might hear, like we had a situation on Survivor a couple of seasons ago where the winner got a terrible edit. She was just like completely invisible from the beginning of the game until the like midpoint of the game. And we find out later from interviews from other people that were on the island that this winner was actually really instrumental in a lot of the moves that were made during the season. And so people were very pissed off that she got such an unfavorable edit because she was so active in the game. And that just comes down to, you know, production liking certain people better and feeling like certain people were more interesting. So then they basically create their own storyline to fit what they think will make a more interesting show. So that is a case where, you know, reality and what is portrayed on TV can be intentionally skewed.
Yeah. I know Survivor in particular, it doesn't affect the actual like quote unquote like gameplay of the show either, but they have like teams of stunt people like reenact events so that they can get different shots for like the actual TV side of it. So like when they're showing uh like the different challenges, uh they'll be like, okay, we wanted to do like aerial shots of the people doing the task or whatever, but we can't do that because it'll show off like all the camera people and all of like the support crew. So it'll show off like 100 people behind the scenes, and it makes it seem less impressive and less like they're actually out there surviving. So they would wait until after the fact and just have these people, like the stunt people, reenact what happened, so then they could film the aerial shot from the helicopter and not have like all the camera people in it. And that's a case of like obviously not affecting the actual show, but it's an interesting like aspect of how do you film these things without it breaking the immersion of the show.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And like that's one of the things where I'm like, okay, that makes sense. It doesn't affect the show in any way other than like the cinematography side of things. But
right,
that I don't know. I guess that's just what rubs me the long way with like the other like the shows I was talking about before, where like they're called reality TV, but then they're anything but, where there's so much interference just to make TV and not actually, especially with like TLC being the learning channel. It's like,
yeah,
man, how far they've fallen.
Yep. No, I definitely understand that.
One of the shows you mentioned before we started recording was The Circle. Can you
Yeah.
explain what that is? Because I'd never heard of that.
Yeah, so The Circle is a show that originally aired in the UK, where essentially you have I think they start out with 12 players that move into this apartment building. They each get their own apartments, and they only communicate through this social media app called The Circle. And so basically, what they do is they are able to create a profile, they're able to put profile pictures on their profile, have a little bio, and that is kind of the only impression that you have of people throughout the entire game. And then every day, you're able to communicate with the other players through the circle chat, and there will be different activities that the players can do in order to get to know each other better. And then that's also uh, a situation where it is a elimination game. So you'll get a little time to talk with the other players, and then the circle will say, okay, now it's time to rate everybody from your, you know, your least favorite to your favorite person, and then the top two people that are voted like most popular become influencers that then have the ability to block one other player in the circle. And so that keeps on happening through different rounds, and other people are able to come into the circle and be added into the circle as new players. And I will say one of the biggest catches of the game is that you can either play as yourself or a catfish. And so it's really about who can make themselves the most popular uh, player and get to the end of the game.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess it's based off of the British show, maybe a British version of it.
Yes. Yeah. So they had the British version, and then at the start of the pandemic, Netflix came out with a American version of The Circle that's been running for probably 5 or 6 seasons by this point.
Okay. So I'm kind of sidestepping here. You mentioned Netflix producing it. Netflix also made, I think, like a reality game show version of Squid Games. I'm pretty sure.
Yep, they did.
Did you watch that as well?
I did not. I'm very
Okay.
much. Uh, I don't know what they were thinking making that
I've not
show.
seen it.
Yeah, I I don't know what they were thinking, so I haven't really had any
we
intention of
watched
watching
we
it.
watched the actual Squid Game show,
Yeah.
and then I saw it wasn't. I don't think it was terribly long after that came out. They came up with like like the actual game show version of it, and I was like, okay, they're clearly doing this to capitalize on the hype. Um, but then I never heard anything else about it, so I didn't know if it went over well or not.
Yeah,
I know
I
like YouTubers obviously copied it and stuff too.
yeah, I remember when it came out that they definitely came under fire um because it's that idea is not really in line with the actual message of the original show.
Hmm.
I feel like for a lot of people, it was the equivalent of Netflix coming out and saying, "Hey, here's the Hunger Games." Um,
Oh no, is
so
equivalent of what? It cut
I
out.
think that
We'll
was
never
kind
know.
of yeah. You never know in this day and
Uh,
age.
I was gonna say you cut out right as you were saying it, so I didn't get to hear what you said.
Oh, no, I was just saying you never know in this day and age. They could decide, hey, well, people liked
Hmm,
this book series, so why don't we do it?
man,
Um, but who
yeah,
knows?
who knows? Who knows? Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like it's a thing that happens a lot with just media in general, where there'll be a thing that's popular, and in an attempt to capitalize on the popularity of that, businesses will make decisions that show they clearly don't understand what it is, what the original message was. Where it's like, what was the oh crap, I can't think of the movie's name. Basically, it was like a military movie where it's just showing off like the mental trauma, like what happens to people as they're going through combat, and
Mhm.
then the studio was like, we need a sequel for this, and the sequel was just like an absolute gun fest where it's like they're just like in combat the entire film, and they're making like quirky like one liners the entire time. It's like, man, you guys clearly did not watch the first one. uh,
Yeah, yeah. You can't expect these big studio executives to have some tact, I guess.
no, it's. I mean, I deal with a similar thing on a daily basis with like companies when I work with them, where they'll see the success of something, but only from a numbers perspective. So like, oh,
Right,
this did really well numbers wise. Like, let's do more of this. And it's like, yeah, but why did it do well? Uh, we just got to keep, figure it out. It's like, okay,
right.
okay, but just doing the same thing again does not guarantee success. Like, you're not understanding like why people enjoyed this or
Yeah,
why this sells well. It I feel like that's what happens with a lot of these instances where it's executives that don't really have their boots on the ground, so to speak. They're just viewing it from the numbers side of things, and so they don't understand where the heart of a lot of the stuff is, and so it shows when they stick their fingers into projects and clearly screw it up because they don't know what it is they're actually doing.
right,
That or when they
exactly.
screw it up because they just don't want to pay. They're just trying to cut costs and maximize profits. That's also a
Yep.
problem we run into a lot.
Yeah.
Oh man. One of the last things I wanted to touch on here too was we had mentioned the Wheel of Time and Brandon Sanderson. I guess we'll start with the Wheel of Time. Were you more of the
Yeah.
book person, show person?
So I got into the Wheel of Time because I saw people talking about it on Twitter, about the Amazon show on Twitter.
Mhm.
And then I started getting recommended all these videos. There's a popular YouTuber named Daniel Green, who is kind of known as the Wheel of Time guy, who did a great breakdown of kind of the uh, mythology of Wheel of Time for beginners. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna check out the series. I'm gonna check out the Amazon series, see if I like it, because this may be the next Game of Thrones, and I want to get in on this
Mhm.
uh, if it's good, because
Yeah.
I always felt like I kind of missed out on Game of Thrones, even though I'm glad that I wasn't there at the end. Um, and so I watched like the first 5 or 6 episodes of the Amazon series, and actually really enjoyed it, which I know is not a popular opinion. And so I think it was by the time the finale of season 1 came out, I bought The Eye of the World. And then, yeah, I spent the next almost 11 months reading the series and really, really enjoying it.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, it's been brought up on our show here a number of times. We've had different guests on where some of them love the show or the books. Some of them hate the show, but they love the books, and any arrangement of the two. And I never read the books, so
Mhm.
I had no information going into the show. But Amazon they had ads for it everywhere. I'm almost positive they had like little ads for it on like the tape they used on like their packaging and things like that. And so it was in my face all the time. And people, like you were saying, it's like, oh, this could be the next Game of Thrones. And I was one of those people that I had read the first few Game of Thrones book. I think I'd read the first 2 Game of Thrones books at the time the show was coming out. Someone I knew had recommended them to me. So I was like, okay. And so I got into the show, I was watching it. And then my girlfriend had not seen any of the show until season, I forget if it was 7 or 8, but she got into it super late. And I just remember rewatching it and being like, oh man, this show is so good. So it must have been season 7 she started, because I wasn't jaded against it yet.
Right.
But I was like, this show is so good. You're going to love this. And she really enjoyed it. And then like season 7 happened, and then 8. And it's just like, man, I'm so sorry I did that to you. But like, man, like Wheel of Time, I had no expectations going into it, no like
Right.
information. It was just like perfectly clean slate. And I just didn't love it. Like I didn't hate it, I guess. Like looking
Right.
back, and I don't hate it, but it just did not captivate me really. I think there's a number of issues that weren't huge, but they all add up. Like they're just tiny little things that all added up. Some of which was just editing
Right.
issues I had with it at times. Um, and then some of the guests we've had on have mentioned like actual like plot related decisions that they said didn't really make sense, which I don't recall exactly. Like one of it was like a guy having a wife, where he said it doesn't really make sense because they meet someone else later down the line. I don't know
Right.
enough about it to say. But yeah, like I said, it was just kind of like a average show to me. But I guess the second season is much better. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
So I did see the second season. I would
Mhm.
say it was much better. It kind of had this a similar issue um, where that last finale, the season finale, just was kind of a mess and didn't
Mhm.
really tie up the storylines super well. There was definitely, so one of the things that I thought as I was watching season 2 was that the way that the Wheel of Time books are written is that you will have books where you'll have 2 or 3 uh like main character POVs.
Mhm.
There's like hundreds of POVs throughout every single
Oh,
book,
okay.
but you'll have a few main character POVs, and there will be one one or two characters that you spend a good deal of time with, and then
Mhm.
you'll have another character POV where they'll kind of start their storyline in one book, and then they'll just leave it in a certain place where, like, it's not finished, but
I
they'll
see.
pick it up
Yeah.
again.
Mhm.
They'll, pick it up again. Uh, and I feel like that's the way that they have been writing the Wheel of Time TV show. I felt
Okay.
like there were some characters we spent a lot of time with, and then there were other characters where it felt like they got half of a storyline. And
Mhm.
so I think that was a big issue for me with the season 2 finale, is that because there were characters that didn't feel like they had full season arcs,
Mhm.
um, but then they were in the finale and, like, did have a finale.
Oh,
Uh, I
interesting.
I just felt like, um, yeah, I just felt like there were storylines that uh, got closed up that didn't have the time dedicated to them,
Mhm.
that were not full storylines to begin with. So then when they ended, I was just like, well, that wasn't earned. Um,
Mhm.
but I think that's what they were trying to do. But in a series where you only have 8 episodes a season, like, no, you've got to devote enough time to each character and give them their proper story arcs, and that just isn't happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's reminiscent of some of the ways they've handled Game of Thrones as the show, where it's like, you know what, this, I mean, like from the showrunner's perspective, it's like, you know what, we want to wrap this up.
Cut out
So
again.
everyone's just gonna meet up and then we're gonna have the finale. Like it would just have to have everyone here. It doesn't need to make sense. We just need to wrap everything up. So just cut to everyone being where we need them to be. And I think that's part of what made it so frustrating among so many other things. But
Right.
yeah, it's bothering. Did you see what was the Lord of the Rings show, Rings of Power?
Rings of Power. I never really got into the Lord of the Rings. I
Okay.
tried to read the first book and just felt like there was so much lore. They'd be walking through a forest, and
Hmm.
uh, Tolkien would have to give you the whole, like,
Yeah.
geography of that forest and the
Yeah.
whole history.
That's absolutely the
Um,
case.
yeah, and so that kind of made it so that I got turned off of fantasy for a long time.
Mhm.
Um, and then I go on
I
to
like the
read.
idea of like this guy that's like known as like one of the godfathers of like high fantasy in general. It's just like it ruined fantasy for me. I just like that he's the guy that did that for you. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, I know that's heresy. And the funny
Oh,
thing
it
is,
doesn't bother me. It's just entertaining.
so then I get into the Wheel of Time, right? And,
Hmm.
like, Robert Jordan, the guy that started the Wheel of Time,
Hmm.
he has a similar issue where, like, he doesn't necessarily, well, I guess he does do it with lore, but his big thing is that he will, like, the characters will go into a lodge, and he will describe every single thing in that lodge, from the chairs to the silverware to the paintings on the wall. And so he's also someone that is incredibly uh, verbose and will devote page time to things that just kind of make everything slow to a crawl. Uh,
Hmm.
but yet I was able to get through it, and I don't know what exactly that says or why that is, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah. Then we had mentioned Brandon Sanderson. He's the one that also was working on the Wheel of Time after
You cut out again.
Robert Jordan passed away. just he's a I don't know if you how much of Brandon Sanderson you've read outside of Wheel of Time, if at all, but it is interesting like how they deal with that because I imagine they're gonna have to do something similar with Song of Ice and Fire, like Game of Thrones
Sorry, you
books,
cut out again
because there's
for
just
like 30 seconds.
no chance George R. R. Martin finishes those books. Unfortunately, it's sad to say. Actually, I shouldn't laugh, but yeah, it's just I find it impossible to believe he's going to finish those, especially at the pace he's going. Oh, I'm sorry, I cut out again. I guess
for about a minute,
Ah,
2 minutes.
I don't know what's going on. I was going to say, Brandon Sanderson obviously worked on Wheel of Time after Robert Jordan passed away, and I'm curious if how they're going to do the same thing if George R. R. Martin passes away before finishing the Song of Ice and Fire Game of Thrones books, which is very likely, it seems.
Oh yeah, those books are never getting finished.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just funny every time that I go on Reddit and see an article about George R. R. Martin, because I know that I'm going to see people complaining in the comments about what a hack he is and how nobody cares, but everybody is very much opinionated about him.
Well, I think part of it too is like it gets frustrating where he says he's working on the books, but then he'll do interviews talking about how he's working on so many different like Game of Thrones spin-off shows, and
Yep.
he has like the Fire and Blood prequel book, which there's going to be a second part to that. The Dunk and Egg side stories, he wrote like 3 of like 12 potential ones, I think he said, or something. I forget how he phrased it, but like he has all these side projects he's working on at the same time, and people are like, please just finish the main story that you're making these side projects on.
Yeah, I am worried, because I've gotten into Brandon Sanderson now and the Cosmere, that I think his plan is that it's going to take like 25 years for him to finish the entire Cosmere, so I am kind of worried that we'll be in the same kind of boat as the Game of Thrones fans are. Even though I think Brandon, plots things much better and definitely is way more interested in finishing that project than George R. R. Martin
I had to look it up.
is.
Brandon Sanderson at least is only 47 years old, so it's not like he's George R. R. Martin's age. I looked up George R. R. Martin is 75 years old.
Yeah,
there is no chance he finishes the series. Like, not to like bully people, I guess, but like he's 75 years old. He's obviously not in great shape, to put it very nicely. Like, there's just no way he finishes, especially at the pace it's been how many years he's been working on this one? Don't even remember. Like, even if it takes 10 years to get the next one out, if you release this, The Winds of Winter, tomorrow, and it takes him 10 more years, do I think he's gonna live to 85 and finish the book? I don't know. It's not ideal. I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
You mentioned like I don't remember what I'm not as like invested in the Cosmere is the Universal like Stormlight Archive series.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know what can you outline like the plan that he has for that? Because I'm not familiar with it. I have 4 of I guess he has 4 of the books out so far.
Yeah, so with the Cosmere, he's got 2 main series. So he's got Mistborn, and there's 2 eras of Mistborn, 2 different trilogies within the Mistborn series. And then he has the Stormlight Archive, which I think he is working on Stormlight 5 right now. And so I know I don't know the broader plan because I literally just got into his books a few months ago,
Okay.
but um, I know I think he's looking at there's going to be 10 books in the Stormlight archive.
Okay.
I know there's going to be at least another era of Mistborn, and then he's got this other series, Elantris, which I know that
Hmm.
he is going to be making uh, 2 sequels to, at least. Um,
Mhm.
so that's at least his plans for the next few years.
Interesting. Oh, I
Hmm.
see. I pulled it up here. So it looks like the fifth book, the title for it tentatively right now is Knights of Wind and Truth, scheduled to be released in 2020, November of 2024. Interesting. Yeah, I have the first 4 books, but like I said, I've been reading those, but I've not dived into like the overarching like universe or anything like that. I was just reading these because it was recommended. But yeah, it is interesting. Like I going back to what we said about like finishing the books, like hopefully Brandon Sanderson is able to finish his universe. It's very frustrating when creators of these universes that you thoroughly enjoy and they're beloved, and they just spend so much time focusing on it that it just gets bigger and bigger to the point where they're unable to like finalize their vision for it because they just keep expanding upon it. And sometimes it's not even their fault. Like sometimes health issues get in the way. Like there's a series I read where the author just has some health issues. So every time a release is supposed to come out, it's like, oh, it's delayed. I couldn't finish it because I'm in the hospital. It's like, oh
Right.
shit, that sucks. I'm sorry, but yeah, it's on one hand, it's like I'd appreciate if they'd finish it because I don't want it to like just end and not have like a conclusion. But on the other hand, it's like, well, obviously, I want them to get better, be healthy.
Right.
Then then it happens. There's a series I had read a while back where the author just went to prison. I think tax evasion. It's like well, at least he has time in prison. He
Time.
could be writing it, maybe.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
and I think with the Cosmere, I know there is going to be a Cosmere book written by a friend of Brandon's, named Dan Wells.
Hmm.
So it is possible that he invites more writers into his fray so that,
Right.
if he were to fall ill, then maybe I could potentially see someone else taking on that mantle. Um,
Mhm.
but I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, I do enjoy that sort of thing, like to an extent, right? Because like I don't like it when you have to have like hours upon hours of time investment to like understand what's going on. I've criticized the current state of like films for this, like the
Yeah,
Marvel Cinematic
Marvel.
Universe,
Yep.
the DC one to an extent, even though they've screwed it up so badly, there's no reason to deal with it anyway. But like
Right.
everything has to have a universe now, and I find that super frustrating. Like I'll use the Marvel universe as like the primary example of it because it's the biggest, most successful one. I don't want to have to watch 35, 40 movies to get caught up on everything that's going on. Like it to me, it's it, on one hand, it is kind of impressive how they're able to weave all these stories together, but on the other hand, it's completely unnecessary. And I've said it this way before on the show here, where it's not even about making quality products at a certain point. It's just about content and an amount of it and making as much as possible. Where every single project is just a stepping stone to the next major one, and then that eventually is just a stepping stone to the next phase. And I find that super frustrating because it's like I just want good individual movies and TV shows to watch, and
Yeah.
it's so hard to get into.
Yeah, I agree. I watched phase 1 of Marvel
Mm-hmm.
and um, didn't really care for any of them. My favorite in the bunch was Iron Man 2, which I know is a lot of people's least favorite uh, movie in that phase. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I don't think this is for me. And yeah, it's like you said, it just becomes about making content. Um the movies all have a similar DNA to them. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not even um you know, you can theoretically enjoy a movie on its own, but it's like if it's not doing its own thing, then uh, it's probably not going to be very entertaining. I
Yeah.
think with the Cosmere, I like the way that it's set up. That he's the way that it works is that he has these series like Mistborn or Wax and Wane or the Stormlight Archive, and
Mm-hmm.
they all exist within the same universe,
Mm-hmm.
but like you can just read Mistborn if you want to. You can just read
Yeah.
Stormlight Archive. And then the way that they're all connected is like little Easter eggs. So
Mm-hmm.
um, you don't technically have to read them as one big thing. Um, I'm just kind of doing it that way because I think it'll be fun. And I mean, uh, Brandon, I think, really is passionate about what he does, and so even if he's churning out 5 books in a year, you know that it they're at least going to be 5 books that he really believes in, and so you're going to at least have a journey that I think is really cool.
Yeah, and like you said, like I can appreciate like having the overarching like universe to things. It's just I hate when they give you homework to do
Yeah.
essentially.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like
yeah,
that
for
that's what I
sure.
find frustrating.
For sure.
Like
Absolutely.
it's just it's too much. Like you have to oh, if you just have to make it accessible is the thing, I guess. It's just
Yeah.
if it becomes too daunting of a task, it becomes inaccessible to the masses, so to speak, and it just turns people off. Like it at a certain like how it's been what 12, 13 years probably for the Marvel movies.
Yep.
Like it's gonna be hard for like new people to start jumping into it and like getting caught up because it's so much content. I mean, how many movies do they put out a year? Like two or three or four, maybe. Just
Yes.
mainline
Yeah.
movies. They have like 4 to 5 like TV series that they do, and it's like, geez, like I mean, I'm biased in that I'm not huge on superheroes to begin with, but
Right.
even so, it's like, man, it's just all I see are like all these different shows and movies you're putting out. It's like I don't want to watch four move 4 movies and 3 TV shows in a year as though it's just one piece of like overarching content. Like it's just exhausting. If Game of Thrones did that, if they had like 4 Game of Thrones shows going at the same time, I would just give up. I wouldn't watch it because it's just
Yep.
too much. And I'm a
Oh,
huge Game of Thrones fan, even with the travesty of season 8, which is one of the worst human experiences possible. It
right.
like I'm still a huge fan of the books in this series, and I'm eagerly waiting for the rest of the books to come out to see like what the difference is between the show and how he wraps it up in the books because it's going to be different for sure. There's a lot of
Mhm.
different characters. I want to know what happens,
Yeah.
but man,
Yeah.
it's just you can have too much of a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So I'm also a big fan of Doctor Who, the
Mm.
sci-fi show, and uh, they so that show is coming back, and it's coming back under the showrunner that brought revived the show back in 2005, and his vision for the future is to kind of have a Marvel-esque
Okay.
television universe. So there are different things that exist in the lore of Doctor Who that he is wanting to spin off.
Mhm.
So that is something that I am hesitant about, but at the same time am excited about. So at the very least, that I think is a project that I will undertake, but that is also something where I have a personal investment in Doctor Who already that I'm
Yeah.
interested to see what they can do inside of this universe.
Fair enough. I kind of like reiterating what we've been saying is like I feel like too like the extended universe that they keep setting up for things.
Mhm.
It also makes it difficult because you have so many different, actually, I guess studios, but like you have so many different teams working on all these different projects that then have to communicate to make it all fit together. So the plot lines like just get so convoluted, or it's like, all right, how do we fix this? So multiverse now, and then that way, this doesn't even have to be a part of it anymore. But this character can just suddenly wind up where we need him to wind up, and it just makes for so many plot holes and like conveniences where it ruins any sense of like gravity in a lot of situations where it's like, oh my god, everything is terrible now. Well, time travel and we're going to another universe, everything's a-okay. It ruins like the value of a lot of things for me in certain instances. But
Right,
like I
yeah.
said, like, with Doctor Who, like I'm not going to complain. I've never seen Doctor Who, so a lot of people will hate me for that to begin with. But like I said, I don't know how the extended universe can work in that show, knowing nothing about it. But like my just based on what I do know about Doctor Who, it's like I can see like maybe it'll be great. I have no idea. I don't want to crap on something without knowing anything about it. But the thing I can see like there'd be problems with would be spreading out their content to the point where they're now, instead of focusing on crafting like very well thought out storylines and plot points, it becomes focused on how do we just connect all of this,
Right,
and it just becomes focused on spreading the widest net possible while maintaining the connection between all of it, as opposed to just one strong cohesive story, which is
right,
what I feel like happens with a lot of these extended universes and spin-offs and things like that.
right,
Who knows? Maybe it'll work out. I'm not gonna. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt since they haven't even done it yet.
right.
But
Yeah.
who knows? Other than before we wrap up here, we're a little over an hour. Before we wrap up, what other shows and or games do you have coming out in the future that you're looking forward to?
Oh boy. Games, nothing much. I've kind of been out of it for a while, so I
Mhm.
need to kind of again dip my toes in and see what people are talking about. Um, as far as shows are going, uh, I I'm watching two things right now. Right now,
Mhm.
I started watching this new show called A Murder at the End of the World, which
My
is
girlfriend just started watching that the other night.
yeah, it's an alright show. It's pretty
Mm.
good. It's the same creators that did the OA, which was it has a devoted fan base from Netflix. So uh, I'll probably be covering that on the YouTube channel.
Nice.
Um, aside from that, uh, speaking of being late to the party, I recently started watching Lost.
Oh, that's a
So
really current relevant show.
right, so so yeah, I recently got into it, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. Um, and yeah, that's basically what I'm doing.
Nice. Yeah, I could not even tell you what games are coming out that I'm looking forward to at this point. I feel like everything I was interested in has released this past year. I'm sure there's stuff I've seen that I've forgotten about, but yeah, that and like I don't know. Maybe I'm just jaded because I spend so much time like listening to content while I work. But man, I don't know. We're gonna watch. I think Oppenheimer comes out on the 20th. We're recording this on the November 19th for people's reference. I think Oppenheimer comes out on video on demand on Tuesday, so we'll probably end up watching that. Um, and then Killers of the Flower Moon. It's a Leonardo DiCaprio film. I don't
Right.
know when that comes out, but we'll watch that as a film. But not a whole lot else. I've been disappointed lately. I don't know why. I think I'm just jaded and miserable. I'm like a
Maybe.
grumpy old man. I'm just like, nothing's good. It was better back in my day.
Yeah,
But
I haven't seen too many, um, not too many movies. I haven't seen people talking
mm,
about too many shows, which, I mean, of course, that makes sense for uh, right now. Um,
mm,
but yeah, hopefully we pick back up here in the next
I'm I'm
year.
hoping uh, something comes out that catches my attention. That I don't know why. It's not necessarily a complaint, but like it's something I've noticed, and I don't know if it's just me, maybe. But like my girlfriend watches a ton of stuff on Netflix, particularly like mini series or just films in general. But like everything looks identical. Not necessarily like plot wise, but like visually, everything like on Netflix, I feel like looks identical. And I don't know why. If it's Netflix just like shooting it all in the same style. I have no idea. But to me, like everything looks like it's filmed on the same, not necessarily the same set, but like with the same camera crew setup or something. It visually they all look so similar, and it's weird. I don't know why I think that. I've never heard anyone else mention it, so I think it's definitely just me. But I don't
Yeah,
know.
I definitely feel like, yeah, there's the same kind of visual language, and I
Mm,
don't know what that is. I think everyone's going for a very cinematic look, and so yeah, there's just the same visual
mm,
language in many
interesting.
different things, but yeah, I don't know what it
Okay.
is.
Yeah, because like I don't like I said, like they had what was Extraction? It's a Chris Hemsworth like action film. They made two of them. Like I that it's a completely different style film compared to like a true crime movie. I just name whatever Netflix created ones on there. Like for whatever reason, I'd be like, these look like they're shot in the exact same camera in the exact same lighting. And I don't know if it's just the way Netflix, like if they have like the same editors for all of them or something. But like, it just, for whatever reason, I'm like, man, these look so similar. And
Right,
they could be shot in completely different locations. They're completely different like themes, like the Haunting of Hill House, like or all like Mike Flanagan's work in general. Like I get all of his stuff will probably look similar because it's him. It's just him. And it makes sense. He has a certain style. But I'm like, even just like I don't know. I just don't know what it is. It's not complaint. I'm not complaining about it. It's something I noticed and I'm like, I don't know why, but it's like something about it is just, it's like, what is the, I can't remember what it's called when you like, there, it's like visually when you look at like a robot's face and you can tell that it's not a human, but it looks so similar.
oh, like Uncanny Valley.
Yes, Uncanny Valley. Thank you. It's like an Uncanny Valley, but with like film on Netflix.
Right,
Like
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just looking at, I'm like, what is this? Why is this putting me off for some reason?
right.
But I don't know. I've ranted about Netflix enough. They need to up some of their games. I feel like too many of their shows have the same plots as well. But
Yeah.
oh well.
Oh.
Anyway, that's all I had. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up here.
Uh no, no, I think I'm good. Thanks for having
All right.
me.
Thank you so much. Where can everyone go to check out your content?
Yes, so you can find me on YouTube at The Entertainment Zone, and you can follow me on Twitter at Noah Massay. That is Mussay. And yeah, I'm same handle on all of the things.
Awesome. Links will be in the description. You guys can go check out deadjesterproductions.live. It's got links to all of our stuff on there. And yeah, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it. Had a good time.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. And it's been episode 205 of the Dead Jester Productions podcast. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.